If you're an older man watching this right now, I need you to listen closely because what I'm about to tell you will change the way you think about attraction forever. Most men believe that age, experience, or money automatically gives them an advantage with younger women, but that's a lie that keeps you missing the signs she is sending. She isn't testing your wealth, your achievements, or how smooth your words are. She is testing something far deeper, something most men never even notice until it's too late. And right now, I'm going to show you exactly where she tests you, what signals you are missing, and why your reaction or lack of reaction will determine whether she's drawn to you or quietly loses interest. Imagine this. She delays a message, she pulls back slightly, she teases or challenges you, and your instinct is to react. Most men react the wrong way, and in that single moment, they destroy the attraction they thought was guaranteed. But what if I told you there's a way to read her signals, stay unshakable, and create an attraction so powerful that she cannot resist leaning in, trusting you, and respecting you deeply, all without trying too hard, without performing, without overcompensating? By the end of this video, you will understand the subtle moments where she tests your emotional strength, how to respond with quiet authority, and why emotional neutrality is the single most attractive quality you can embody. You'll discover the secret most older men miss, and when you apply it, you will not just hold her attention, you will make her feel safe, desired, and respected in ways she's never experienced before. If you think you know what makes a woman attracted to a man, I promise you've never seen it like this. Watch closely because missing this could cost you everything and mastering it could change your life forever. Let us begin with the first truth most older men are not prepared to hear. She is not testing your age. She is not testing your money. She is not testing your money. She is not testing how much you've achieved or how much you know. She is testing your emotional stability. And that distinction changes everything. Many older men walk into relationships with a quiet confidence that says, I have already proven myself in life. You have built businesses, survived hardships, accumulated wisdom, developed discipline. You assume that this alone positions you differently from younger men. And in some ways it does. But attraction is not sustained by a resume. It is sustained by emotional experience. When a younger woman chooses to engage with an older man, she is not simply looking for provision or protection. She is subconsciously looking for emotional safety. She wants to know that the calm you project is not an act. She wants to know that your maturity is not just chronological, it is psychological. So she tests you, not loudly, not dramatically, but subtly, because emotional strength cannot be measured when everything is going well. It can only be measured when there is uncertainty. This is where most older men misunderstand the dynamic. They believe attraction is about impressing her. But she is not trying to be impressed. She is trying to assess whether she can relax around you without managing your emotions. That is the real test. If she slightly disagrees with you, does your tone shift? If she delays responding, does your energy become anxious? If she questions your opinion, do you become defensive? If she jokes in a way that challenges your ego, do you subtly try to regain control? But psychologically, they are diagnostic. A woman who is younger is often navigating a power imbalance in her mind. She knows you have more experience. She knows you may have more authority socially or financially, so before she allows herself to feel deeply attached, she must determine something critical. Are you emotionally safe or are you emotionally dominant? There is a difference. An emotionally dominant man controls through pressure. An emotionally stable man leads through composure. If your ego reacts every time your authority feels slightly challenged, she learns something dangerous about you. She learns that beneath the maturity is fragility, and fragility in a man who holds power feels threatening, not attractive. Psychologically speaking, attraction deepens when a woman senses nervous system regulation in a man. When she tests your patience or your certainty, she is watching for dysregulation. Does your breathing change? Does your speech accelerate? Do you over-explain? Do you subtly attempt to correct her tone? You may think these reactions are invisible. They are not. Human beings are incredibly sensitive to micro shifts in emotional energy, especially women, especially in relational contexts. When you remain steady, not passive, not dismissive, but steady, you communicate something far more powerful than dominance. You communicate containment. You show that you can hold tension without collapsing into it. And this is rare. Many older men confuse emotional suppression with emotional strength. They believe that because they do not shout or overtly react, they are stable. But suppression leaks. It shows up in passive aggression. It shows up in cold withdrawal. It shows up in subtle punishments. It shows up in silence designed to create anxiety. That is not stability. That is controlled insecurity. True emotional strength is different. It is the ability to hear something that challenges you and remain internally composed. It is the ability to tolerate uncertainty without rushing to regain control. It is the ability to let her have her emotional moment without making it about your ego. This is why she tests you here, because if you are going to lead emotionally, psychologically, she needs to know that your leadership does not crumble when she expresses autonomy. If you cannot tolerate small disruptions, how will you handle real conflict, Haibing? If your ego is easily bruised, how will you handle disagreement? If your sense of self depends on her constant validation, how will you provide stability when she is unsure? She is not trying to defeat you. She is trying to evaluate whether she can trust you. And trust is built not in perfection, but in consistency. The irony is this: the more you try to prove you're emotionally strong, the more you reveal that you are not. Emotional strength does not announce itself. It is demonstrated quietly. It is demonstrated when she pulls back and you do not chase, when she challenges you and you do not flinch, when she disagrees and you listen without tightening, when she tests your patience and you respond with measured calm. At that moment, something shifts in her perception. You stop being an older man trying to maintain control. You become a grounded man who does not need to control, and that is profoundly attractive because now she can relax. Now she does not have to manage your emotions. Now she does not have to walk carefully around your ego. Now she feels that your maturity is real. So understand this deeply. She tests your emotional stability because that is the foundation of long-term attraction, not your age, not your experience, not your resources, your nervous system, your regulation, your composure under subtle pressure. If you master that, you do not need to convince anyone of your value. You embody it. And the man who embodies emotional stability does not chase respect. He commands it cool. Now, let us go deeper into where this test actually happens, because this is the part most men completely overlook. The test does not happen during romance. It does not happen when she is smiling at you, leaning into you, complimenting you, or giving you her full attention. In those moments, everything feels easy. You feel confident. You feel in control. You feel desired. The test happens the moment her energy slightly shifts. And I want you to understand something very clearly. It is rarely dramatic. She does not announce that she is testing you. She does not create a big conflict. She does not sit you down and challenge your masculinity. It is subtle, almost invisible, which is why most older men miss it. She takes longer to reply to your message. She cancels plans once and does not over explain. She becomes a little quieter than usual. She challenges an opinion you are confident about. She makes a playful comment that slightly questions your authority. She mentions another man in a neutral way and watches your reaction. These are small moments, but psychologically, they are loaded. What is she doing? She is creating a small space of uncertainty, and uncertainty reveals character. When everything is consistent and affirming, you do not need emotional control. But when something feels slightly off, your nervous system responds. You feel it immediately. A subtle discomfort, a small question in your mind. Why did she take so long? Why did she say that? Is something changing? And here is where the entire dynamic shifts. Most older men believe their advantage is certainty. You believe you are beyond insecurity. You believe you have emotional experience. But uncertainty does not test your experience. It tests your regulation. When she pulls back slightly, the immature response is to close the gap immediately, to message again, to demand assurance, to become colder in return, to assert control, to subtly punish, to overcompensate with charm or dominance. All of these reactions communicate the same thing. You are uncomfortable with uncertainty, and discomfort with uncertainty signals fragility. Let me explain this psychologically. Attraction contains polarity, but it also contains tension. A healthy dynamic requires space for both individuals to move freely. When she slightly withdraws, she is not necessarily losing interest. Often, she is observing whether you allow space without panic. If you collapse that space immediately, you communicate fear of loss. Fear is never attractive in a leadership position. When she challenges your opinion, she is not necessarily disrespecting you. She is assessing whether disagreement destabilizes you. Can you tolerate intellectual friction? Can you hold your view without aggression? Can you allow her perspective without feeling diminished rival? Because long-term relationships are built on difference, not sameness. If you need constant agreement to feel secure, you are not strong. You are dependent, and she senses that instantly. When she cancels plans once, it is not always manipulation. Sometimes it is simply life, but how you interpret it reveals your internal framework. Do you assume rejection? Do you assume disrespect? Or do you remain steady and respond proportionately? Loyal to grounded man does not escalate small shifts into emotional narratives. He observes, he adjusts if necessary, but he does not spiral. That is power. Many older men, especially those dating younger women, carry a silent fear. What if she changes her mind? That fear makes you hypersensitive to normal fluctuations. So when she creates even a small emotional distance, your mind amplifies it, and amplification leads to reaction. Reaction leads to loss of composure. Loss of composure leads to loss of attraction. She is watching whether you can handle the natural ebb and flow of connection without trying to control it. Because if you cannot handle small space, you will suffocate her with big control. But emotionally intelligent women test in subtle ways because subtlety reveals authenticity. Anyone can perform confidence in stability. Very few can maintain it in ambiguity. If she teases you lightly and you become serious, she sees tension. If she disagrees and you dominate the conversation, she sees insecurity. If she withdraws and you withdraw harder to regain power, she sees ego. But if she shifts slightly and you remain internally aligned, something changes. you communicate abundance. Not financial abundance. Emotional abundance. You communicate that your identity does not depend on her constant validation. You communicate that you enjoy her presence, but you are not destabilized by her temporary absence. You communicate that disagreement does not threaten you, and that is deeply reassuring. Because here is the truth. She does not want to walk on eggshells around you. She does not want to feel responsible for regulating your emotions. She does not want to fear that one cancelled plan will create tension for days. She wants to feel that your presence is steady. So when her energy shifts, do not immediately assume threat. Assume observation. Pause before you react. Ask yourself, am I responding from clarity or from ego? The moment between stimulus and response is where maturity lives. Older men often believe maturity is about life experience. It is not. It is about how slowly you react to discomfort. If you can slow down your reaction, you pass the test. If you can tolerate uncertainty without rushing to fix it, you pass the test. If you can allow her to express difference without needing dominance, you pass the test. The test is not loud. It is quiet. It lives in the delayed reply. It lives in the cancelled plan. It lives in the subtle disagreement. It lives in the playful challenge. And your composure in those moments determines whether attraction deepens or dissolves. So the next time her energy shifts slightly, do not panic, do not perform, do not control. Observe yourself. Because the real question is not why she pulled back. The real question is whether you can remain centered when she does. And the man who can stay grounded in small uncertainty will never be shaken by larger storms. Now we need to confront the uncomfortable part, because this is where most men lose the very attraction they worked so hard to build. Reactivity destroys attraction instantly, not slowly, not gradually, instantly. And the tragedy is that most men do not even recognize when they are being reactive. They believe they are responding appropriately. They believe they are setting boundaries. They believe they are expressing themselves. But underneath those justifications is something far more revealing: wounded ego. When she pulls back slightly and you immediately send another message to regain control, that is reactivity. When she challenges your opinion and you begin over-explaining to prove your intelligence, that is reactivity. When she cancels once and your tone becomes colder the next time you speak, that is reactivity. When she teases you and you subtly try to reassert dominance, that is reactivity. It does not have to be loud to be destructive. In fact, the most damaging forms of reactivity are quiet and controlled. Psychologically, reactivity signals insecurity. It signals that your emotional state is dependent on external validation. And the moment a woman senses that she can shift your internal stability with a small action, the polarity changes. You are no longer the emotion or grounded presence in the interaction. You are now responding to her energy rather than maintaining your own. Attraction requires asymmetry in emotional regulation. The more stable nervous system sets the tone. When you react impulsively, you communicate that your stability is conditional. Let me explain this in very practical terms. If she takes longer to respond and you feel anxiety, that feeling is human. But what you do next defines your maturity. If you allow that anxiety to dictate your behavior, double texting, withdrawing in frustration, or subtly expressing disappointment, you have handed her evidence that you are unsettled, and unsettled men do not feel safe. Many older men assume that because they do not raise their voice, they are composed. But emotional reactivity is not measured by volume. It is measured by impulse. If you feel the urge to correct her immediately, to defend yourself immediately, to fix the dynamic immediately, that urgency is the signal. Urgency often comes from fear, fear of losing control, fear of losing status, fear of losing her interest, and fear erodes attraction faster than any flaw. There is something deeply unattractive about a man who needs to win every small emotional exchange. When you argue to dominate rather than to understand, she sees competition, not leadership. When you over-explain your value, she sees self-doubt, not confidence. When you withdraw affection to punish, she sees manipulation, not strength. And the most damaging reaction of all is subtle resentment. You may not say anything directly. You may remain polite, but your energy shifts, your warmth decreases, your responses become shorter, your engagement becomes calculated. You believe you are protecting yourself. In reality, you are communicating that your ego has been bruised. Emotionally mature women are highly perceptive. They read tone, pace, pauses, eye contact. They sense contraction in your body language. They notice when your smile tightens instead of softens. And when they detect that contraction, something changes internally. Respect weakens. Because respect is built on emotional containment. If you cannot contain your own reactions, how can you contain conflict? How can you lead a relationship through difficulty? How can you provide psychological steadiness? You cannot. Reactivity also creates instability in the dynamic. If your mood fluctuates based on her behavior, she begins to feel responsible for managing you. She may start adjusting herself to avoid triggering your reactions, but that adjustment is not attraction. It is self-protection kills intimacy. True confidence is slow. It is measured. It is deliberate. It does not rush to defend itself. If she questions your opinion, a grounded man listens fully before responding. He does not interrupt to assert superiority. He does not treat disagreement as disrespect. He understands that being challenged does not diminish his authority. If she pulls away slightly, a grounded man allows space without dramatizing it. He does not invent narratives about betrayal or loss. He continues living his life. He remains consistent. Consistency is power, reactivity is volatility, and volatility, even in small doses, creates doubt. You must understand that attraction is deeply tied to emotional safety. When you react impulsively, you create unpredictability. Even subtle unpredictability weakens the sense of safety she feels around you. Many men confuse intensity with strength. They believe strong reactions demonstrate passion, but passion without regulation feels chaotic, and chaos does not sustain desire, it exhausts it. The goal is not emotional numbness. The goal is emotional mastery. You will feel irritation. You will feel security. You will feel ego. That is human. But mastery is the space between feeling and acting. When you pause before responding, you interrupt the cycle of reactivity. When you choose clarity over impulse, you strengthen your internal authority. When you refuse to let small emotional disruptions dictate your behavior, you solidify your presence. And presence is magnetic. If you find yourself reacting quickly, ask a better question. Instead of asking, why did she do that? Ask, why did that disturb me? The second question leads to growth, because the truth is, she does not destroy attraction when she tests you. You destroy it when you react. The man who cannot control his impulses cannot lead a stable dynamic. The man who must win every exchange will eventually lose the relationship. The man who reacts emotionally to small shifts reveals that his confidence is fragile. So slow down, notice the urge, and choose response over reaction. Because the moment you master your reactions, you stop fighting for respect. You start embodying it. Now we come to a truth that almost every older man overlooks. Emotional neutrality is power. And when I say emotional neutrality, I do not mean coldness. I do not mean indifference. I do not mean pretending that nothing matters. Far from it. Emotional neutrality is something far more profound. It is the ability to feel fully, to observe completely, and yet to respond with deliberate composure. It is the calm center of a storm, the still point in a whirlwind of shifting energies, the quiet presence that communicates strength without demand. Many men believe strength is demonstrated through action, through assertion, through dominance. They think if they can overwhelm uncertainty, control the conversation, or win every exchange, they are strong. But this is illusion. True strength, particularly with a younger woman, is quiet, it is measured, it is invisible until it is felt. Imagine this. She pulls away slightly, she tests your patience, she teases or disagrees, or she delays responding. The instinctive reaction for most men is to respond immediately, sometimes with charm, sometimes with defensiveness, sometimes with subtle attempts to regain authority. Every one of those reactions communicates that your internal state is not independent. It communicates that your sense of stability is conditional on her behavior. And when your stability is conditional, attraction falters. Emotional neutrality, however, allows you to witness these fluctuations without being swept away by them. It allows you to observe her actions, to understand their meaning, but not to internalize them as a threat to your worth. You remain fully engaged, fully present, but internally untouched by the waves she creates. You do not overcompensate. You do not manipulate. You do not control. You respond from a space of clarity, not impulse. This is where most older men fail. They confuse calm with passivity. They think if they do not react, they are showing weakness. In reality, true emotional neutrality is an active strength. It is effortful in its subtlety. It requires mastery over your thoughts, your ego, your instincts. It requires the ability to sit with tension and uncertainty without letting it define you. When you maintain this neutrality, you communicate something profound to her subconscious mind. You communicate that your value is inherent, not performative, that your stability is real, not conditional, that you are not dependent on her for emotional validation. And these qualities are deeply magnetic. They signal maturity, security, and trustworthiness. The effect is immediate. A woman senses it, even if she cannot name it. She feels a shift in energy. She feels that tension ease, that subtle pull of control released. She feels safe to be herself without worrying about how her behavior will destabilize you. She begins to relax, lean in, and show her authentic self. And as she does, attraction grows stronger, not through grand gestures, not through displays of power, but through quiet, consistent emotional presence. Neutrality does not mean ignoring her actions or becoming disconnected. It means observing without judgment, understanding without fear, and responding without compulsion. You do not need to correct her. You do not need to chase her attention. You do not need to assert dominance over the situation. You simply exist as a steady presence, a grounded center that she can rely on instinctively. Consider the implications. When you respond from emotional neutrality, you are not reacting to every fluctuation. You are not giving small incidents disproportionate weight. You are not allowing minor shifts in energy to dictate your mood or behavior. You are choosing the long-term stability of attraction over the short-term validation of ego. This requires awareness, discipline, and the willingness to sit in discomfort without capitulating to it. Many older men underestimate this, thinking their experience, wealth, or status alone will carry them through. But experience is meaningless without emotional regulation. Wealth can attract curiosity, but it does not sustain desire. Status can command attention, but it cannot command trust. Emotional neutrality is what converts fleeting interest into enduring attraction. It is the difference between a relationship that feels alive and a relationship that feels precarious. The practice is simple in concept, but challenging in execution. When she tests you, notice the instinct to react. Notice the urge to explain, defend, manipulate, or control. Pause. Take a breath. Align with your internal center. Respond only when your actio. Ends are deliberate and intentional. Let your presence convey stability more than your words ever could. Let her experience your composure as a form of quiet leadership. Over time, this consistency transforms the dynamic. She learns that her energy fluctuations cannot destabilize you. She feels free to engage without fear. She respects you without coercion. She is attracted to you not because you proved yourself in dramatic ways, but because you embody a steady force that does not need to prove anything at all. And here is the most important insight. Emotional neutrality is not something you practice for her. It is something you practice for yourself. It is the internal mastery that allows you to navigate any relationship with confidence and clarity. When you develop this skill, your interactions are no longer reactive cycles of tension and release. They become intentional dances of presence and attraction, where you set the rhythm and she moves naturally within it. So remember this truth: neutrality is power, calm is magnetic, composure is authority. The man who can feel everything yet respond without compulsion holds a force few can resist. Do not seek to dominate the moment. Do not seek to control her energy. Seek instead to master your own. In that mastery lies attraction, respect, and enduring desire. And the moment you embody this fully, you will see that women do not test you to undermine you. They test you to find the man who can stand unwavering in the quiet spaces of uncertainty. Embrace emotional neutrality. It is not weakness. It is not indifference. It is the foundation of true strength and the key to commanding respect and desire without ever demanding it. The man who masters this is the man she never forgets. Now we arrive at the final truth, and it is the one that separates the men who remain memorable from those who fade into forgettable pattern. Your real advantage as an older man is not in your age, your experience, your wealth, or your status. It is in your emotional regulation, your ability to manage your inner state and respond intentionally, regardless of what is happening around you. Most men misunderstand what it means to be experienced. They believe that experience alone creates attraction. They believe that their life achievements signal worth automatically. But attraction, particularly with a younger woman, is not a ledger of accomplishments. It is a reflection of how you handle yourself under pressure, in moments of subtle testing, in moments of ambiguity, in moments that feel slightly uncomfortable. She tests you in ways you may not even notice. She tests your patience with small delays. She tests your tolerance with minor disagreements. She tests your presence with subtle shifts in energy. And in those moments, your reaction, or your lack of reaction, reveals more about you than any story of success could ever convey. Emotional regulation is the foundation of attraction because it demonstrates internal authority. It shows that your value is inherent, not dependent on external validation. When you are emotionally regulated, she can feel the stability in your presence. She does not have to guess where she stands. She does not have to worry about small fluctuations creating conflict. She can relax, she can trust, and attraction grows naturally from that sense of safety. Older men often rely on habits of control, dominance, or overcompensation to maintain attraction. They believe that a show of certainty or authority will impress her. But the truth is, control is a substitute for stability, overcompensation is a mask for insecurity, and dominance, when ungrounded, becomes aggression. None of these qualities sustain long-term attraction. What she seeks is not a performance of strength, but the embodiment of it. This embodiment begins with awareness. When she challenges you, delays a response, or expresses a subtle boundary, your task is not to correct her or control the outcome. Your task is to notice your internal reaction.
Are you reacting from ego, from fear?
From need, or are you responding from a place of grounded clarity? This moment of awareness is the gateway to mastery, because once you can observe your impulses without immediately acting on them, you step into choice. You no longer react, you respond. And response is power. Response communicates that your composure is independent of circumstance, that your identity is not contingent on constant affirmation, and that your presence is steady even in the face of subtle disruption. Emotional regulation also allows you to create a relationship dynamic that is both safe and magnetic. When she knows that your stability does not waver with small uncertainties, she feels free to be herself. She can show her true emotions, her disagreements, her fears, and her desires without testing the limits of your control. That freedom is intoxicating. It fosters intimacy and trust, and it establishes a pattern where she is naturally drawn toward you because your energy does not trigger tension. It creates attraction. Many men underestimate the simplicity of this principle. They believe attraction requires constant performance. They believe they must demonstrate their value in visible, measurable ways. But the reality is far more subtle. Attraction is cultivated quietly in the way you carry yourself under pressure, in the way you maintain calm when tested, in the way you respond rather than react. It is an internal quality that radiates outward, far beyond anything a superficial gesture or achievement could convey. To master this, you must practice restraint. You must practice observation. You must practice some slowing down your reactions, the small moments of testing. Her delayed reply, her teasing, her disagreement are not obstacles. They are opportunities to demonstrate your inner mastery. Each moment you remain centered reinforces the perception of stability, and that perception grows into lasting attraction. Another critical aspect is self-sufficiency. Emotional regulation is deeply tied to the understanding that your happiness, your stability, and your identity do not depend on her approval. When you carry this mindset, she senses abundance. You are no longer needy, defensive, or reactive. You are abundant, secure, and magnetic. This abundance is rare, and rarity always commands respect. When you combine emotional regulation with presence, patience, and intentionality, something remarkable happens. She no longer tests you as aggressively. She relaxes. She leans in. She mirrors your composure and begins to align her energy with yours. And in this alignment, attraction is no longer a fragile dynamic of fear and insecurity. It becomes a natural flowing connection built on trust, respect, and mutual desire. Finally, emotional regulation is not a skill you practice for her, it is a skill you develop for yourself. It strengthens your sense of self. It clarifies your boundaries. It allows you to navigate life and relationships without unnecessary drama. And when you approach a woman from this space of mastery, she perceives it instantly. She recognizes the difference between a man who reacts and a man who leads with composure. She feels the energy, even if she cannot name it. She trusts it, and she is drawn to it. So understand this deeply. Your advantage as an older man is not in your age or experience alone. It is in your ability to regulate yourself emotionally, to maintain composure under subtle testing, to respond rather than react, and to stability in a world that is constantly shifting. This is what creates respect. This is what sustains desire. This is what makes you unforgettable. If you embrace this truth, you stop chasing attraction. You stop performing. You start embodying it. And the man who masters his inner world will find that attraction, trust, and respect naturally follow him effortlessly and inevitably. The real power is not in what you can show her. The real power is in what you do not need to show. Master your emotions, regulate your presence, and you will never have to prove your worth again.